Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics, a podcast dedicated to exploring how things get places and the people who get them there. We'll talk with logistics and supply chain leaders about innovation, industry trends, and the future of the logistics business. Now, here's your host, Joe Lynch.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is retail delivery trends with my friend Matt Schultz. How's it going, Matt?
Okay. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to have you here, Matt. And by the way, we're going to talk about retail delivery trends. And Matt and his team over at OneRail, they know what's going on this end of things. So there's a lot of changes. And it's funny, since the pandemic, it just continues to change. It's such a dynamic space, and I think the bar is going up every day on this business too. So anyway, Matt, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
My name is Matt Schultz. I am the Vice President of Logistics Partnerships. We are in OneRail is in Orlando, Florida, based in Orlando, Florida, and we do have remote employees all over the country as well.
I know, but you guys got a lot of people down in Orlando. How did you guys have survived Ian?
Well, in Florida, obviously everybody can see what happened to South Florida. In the Orlando area, we didn't quite get hit as bad, but there's after summertime, there's nowhere for the water to go. The ground's already saturated. There's just nowhere for the water to go. So there's a lot of places in and around all the central Florida locations and cities that are in a flood stage until somewhere around Thanksgiving, they're saying. So, yeah, Ian was pretty rough from the rain and the wind standpoint for sure.
Right. So, Matt, what does OneRail do?
So OneRail is a fully automated and managed delivery solution that orchestrates all deliveries for any business, no matter what business that is.
Now, is that last mile, middle mile?
That is, believe it or not, that would be everything. So that could be last mile, middle mile. There's not much that we won't do and we won't say no to.
Excellent. So, tell us a little bit about you before we get into today's topic. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And give us some career highlights before you joined the mighty OneRail.
So I was originally born in Wisconsin. Very short time in my life there, about 6 months, but I grew up in southern New Jersey. That's where I met my wife. We've been married 28 years, 5 kids. Yep. And we moved to Florida here in 2016, mostly because of the weather, but it was for business reasons at that time as well. My career started, obviously, I went to Westchester University in Pennsylvania, and quickly moved into the workforce with Safety Clean Corporation. And with Safety Clean, I actually came in as just a warehouse person, just a parts person, and worked myself up to be a DC manager, and then help them with their at that time with Safety Clean, and I was there for 13 years. Hazardous waste was just really getting like, oh boy, hazardous waste. What do we do with it? How do we track it? All those types of things. Help them design. And at that point, Safety Clean was, I think, the leader in the world of hazardous waste recycling. Help them design their corporate waste tracking system. Not from a technical standpoint, more of an operational standpoint, and then traveled the country and trained that as well.
Well, that's a big company, right? They've got and their business is beyond just hazardous waste, right?
It is, and it's morphed into so much more since then, since I've been there. But in that day, it was mostly hazardous waste, and how do we track this properly? How is it inspected? How do states come in and know what's going through your system, where it goes, how it's being recycled, all those types of things. So, yeah, it was exciting because I was very young at that time as well.
Yeah, it's funny that that B2B with a lot of distribution and a lot of coordination of warehousing stuff probably was very unsexy then. Wasn't the hot spot it is all of a sudden today. Now all of a sudden you're looking back right and going, that was the plan. That was always the plan. I wanted to get in early. So where'd you go from Safety Clean?
From Safety Clean, believe it or not, I completely pivoted my career into the fitness industry. And for the first couple of years, I was just learning my way through the fitness landscape and, how to run facilities, designing operations manuals and those types of things. And in 2005, with the current or the then CEO of the company. We built Retro Fitness, and it was just us two at the beginning, CEO and me as the VP of Ops, writing operations manuals, selling our franchises, training those franchisees through our system, and why you do what you do and how to make the brand grow. I did that all the way up to 2019.
Yeah, before we hit record, we were talking about franchises. And, when you go to, and God knows we all shouldn't go as much as we do. Somebody's going to McDonald's. Everyone denies it. But when you go to McDonald's, there is, for the most part, consistency no matter where you go. And that doesn't happen with most businesses. You can't, you worked at Safety Clean. I'm sure you had a lot of consistency there. But when we talk about like our business and delivery experience, it's difficult to have people follow the process, follow the rules, follow the procedure every single time. It's the biggest problem with franchising is the consistency problem.
So yeah, and it's to train and go through that process for so many years. It's if you can get people to understand to build the brands, right? To build the brands, you have to do things alike. People have to go, if they're visiting a food establishment in New Jersey that's a franchise, and they go to Florida, they expect the same experience. That's why they go, right? Is I know that I want, and if the experience isn't right, they're going to stop going. And it's you have to make people understand that.
Right. That's the whole business. And I can't imagine if you work in your McDonald's franchise and you're hiring a whole bunch of younger people, maybe their first job, and then you got some retirees. You got people not everybody working there is career track, and you've got to get them to follow that process. And same with the gym. You're not getting somebody coming out of their MBA program to go work at the gym. You're getting somebody who's said, "Hey, I'd like to own my own gym someday." And that's the problem. you got consistency matters.
It's about following the model, being consistent. Even if you look at NFL franchises, the ones that are consistent and they follow a model, they're usually at the top of their divisions and in the playoff hunt every single year. The Patriots of the world and those type of people. Even as much as we might dislike that sometimes, me being a Steelers fan, I come from the same type of thing. You watch that and you watch that process of hiring coaches and them being there for a long time. You see teams that hire a coach and new coordinators every year, and those teams are always just
wait. Are you if you're talking about Detroit, you can just come right out and say it.
Hey,
by the way, I saw good. To your point, I saw yesterday in Forbes the Forbes 400 edition. I'm again not in it, but they had the top football teams in value. Detroit Lions were very last, and you look and go, this is crazy in a market that is fanatical about football. We filled the stadium at Michigan Stadium 40 minutes away, 110, 112,000 people every weekend. In East Lansing, they fill their stadium for the Spartans, I think, 70, 80,000 people per game. That's 90 minutes from Detroit. They still fill up Ford Field, and we've been unsuccessful here since the 50s. Since the 50s. It's crazy. And yeah, something's wrong. But you mentioned, can we change general managers and coaches every few years? Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when you have a whole new regime comes in, all new model comes in, have to relearn everything. And if we could just follow the script and follow the model.
Well, we did that. We hired the Patriots general manager, brought him over here and said, hey, how can we possibly go wrong? We figured it out. Right. Every Lions fan is entitled to a secondary team. For a long time, it was the Steelers for me. I love Mean Joe Green and Franco Harris. Yep. And so I've always been a Steeler fan. And then my Tom Brady was a Wolverine. So when he moved to Patriots, we were just happy he got drafted. He's done all right. But anyway, right. When and why did you join OneRail?
Well, back in 2019, pretty much is when, COVID was in play. So for the fitness industry, there was a lot of uncertainty, right? And a lot of those service industries there were. And it just at that point, the company had changed, the view and
Time to
um,
move.
yeah, they switched it, they brought in new teams of people. And at that point I was like, okay, maybe it's time to, try something different. And that's when I met, Bill and Lisa. I had known Lisa from a previous career, that being from the gym industry, and Lisa and Bill are co-founders of the company.
That's
And she,
Bill and Lisa Catania.
yes, yep. And they introduced me to the process, and it was a very short dating period, and I accepted the work. And today, hopefully, I've been brought in, and I think I have as that franchising mindset. And I deal with the logistical partners more than I deal with the shipping partners, but it's all hand in hand, right? It all works the same. Might work differently and have different processes, but there has to be process. So that's what I'm here for, and so far so good.
Yeah, I have not interviewed Lisa yet, but I did interview Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting, and you maybe can elaborate on this, but Bill told a story about kind of how this business came about. And he said, I think he was at one of the big box stores.
Yes.
I won't mention the name.
Yep.
And he said, I would like that washer. Was it a refrigerator?
Refrigerator. Mm-hmm.
And he picked it out, and they said, yeah, that's the one. We'll get it. Yeah, let's pay up here, and we'll get it delivered to your house in 10 days.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, 10 days? Like, I need a refrigerator now. Like, usually when you go and buy refrigerators, because
right.
it's doing something wrong, right?
Exactly right, yes.
And so he's like, I think he got a pickup truck and took it home himself. But that was the genesis of the business. Am I right?
That was the genesis of the business. Exactly right. Let's find that volume somewhere. That capacity's got to be there somewhere. So let's find it, and let's hook it all up together, and let's make that delivery. Right.
Yeah, and I would go one step further. This is just my own thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. If you're like these companies, like all the big box stores, there was no national brand that was coming to you and saying, I can do it in Orlando and in New York and in Nevada and in Washington, D.C. and in Seattle. So you would call and I say, yeah, I called Joe and Matt's tote business, and they said, yeah, we'll pick it up anywhere you want as long as it's in Orlando, and then we'll drop it off at your house in 10 days. And
yeah, everything's scheduled. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the problem is I think those final mile businesses were still in their infancy and still are in their infancy. There was no major player that could do it everywhere. It was a whole bunch of local businesses. And if you're a big company, well, even if you're a small company, you're like, I don't want to deal with one guy or two or three guys who can't count on. I want a business. I want technology. I want operational excellence.
Right. But even to this day, you still find that. You still find single companies dealing with the local, which is there's nothing wrong with if that's what you want to do, but you're not going to create the good customer experience that way.
Yeah, so the problem you run into is these large brands, you can't afford to be using a small onesie twosie business. You need somebody with nationwide coverage. You need somebody who's got technology and operational excellence and management and a little bit of heft.
Yeah, all in one place. So, and you still see that today, where we're out there actively selling the platform, and companies still are large, small, medium. It doesn't really matter. They're still using those localized companies. They still have multiple different platforms they have to log into just to find a delivery partner. So that's still happening, and hopefully we'll get to a point where it's not like that, and the supply chain is great. But that still happens today.
It reminds me when I was selling, I was managing I was the general manager of a logistics company, and I remember when we would show up with a transportation management system, a TMS, and I would talk to people and talk to them, how do you currently get your LTL carriers and your truckload carriers? And they'd go, well, for Jim at Jim's Trucking, I text him typically, and then he texts me back always within 1 hour. And when this guy likes emails, this guy He has his own system, you know, and it was always this myriad of approaches that was not right. And then when you say, how about you use a transportation management system where everything is in one place? They would just look at you like, oh my God, that's like the dream. You know, all my shipments tracked. And it was, for a minute when I was selling that, it was like you walk in and it was like you were, it was like you're Steve Jobs stopping by to talk about their business. And then all of a sudden everybody got up to speed. And that became very rare for, you know, somebody say, oh, I text this guy and I email this guy. It all seemed so antiquated very soon. But as soon as we got that done, we had changes. Obviously, COVID changed everything. We started to want home delivery. And that final mile, by the way, we never used to even say final mile. We just said we got trucking, right? And nobody talked about the final mile at all. But suddenly it's super important, and it has the same problem that we had with over-the-road trucking and less than truckload. No systems and nobody who could come in and consolidate a whole bunch of capacity and use technology to connect it. We didn't have it.
And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Yes. So tell us a little bit what OneRail has and what you guys do.
So it's, you know, we talked about it earlier, but, you know, we're that delivery orchestration platform, right? We're that one place where you can log into, you know, put your order in, whether it's a manual order, an upload, coming from your POS system, ERP, whatever that is, and have full visibility of that delivery from start to finish in one place. No matter who the delivery partner is, that is what we choose on our end, right? We're delivering who's handling that volume. What capacity we have is handling that volume. And it's going to be based off of a lot of different things, right? So, you know, weight and size, where they can, you know, the areas that they can work in, fleet capabilities, all those things. We're doing all that smart matching in the background with AI, real time, in a matter of milliseconds, and matching that delivery to the right delivery partner.
I haven't asked. I think Bill Catanius mentioned it, but how many partners do you guys have in your system?
If we're talking about logistical partners in that capacity we have out there, we work with about 700 to 800 different entities that consist of over 10 million drivers.
That's like crazy.
Yeah, and that's all the way from the bikes, honestly, the bicycle riders, all the way up to LTL, FTL, and more.
But to have nationwide coverage, to have not only moving refrigerators, but also moving, you know, a prescription, you need that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Yeah, it's a crazy new world, but again, it makes 100% sense. And you know, I've said this on my podcast many times. When we had COVID hit, at that time, we thought 2% of the population could die, 3%. And I remember just the horror of that. And I remember I would go grocery shopping, and and I'm not super paranoid about any of this, but I brought my groceries home and washed them in my sink because I was afraid somebody with COVID might have touched my orange juice. So I gotta rinse it off. I gotta clean it. And then they're all sitting drying in a rack, all my groceries. We were truly worried about what was going to happen. And so all of a sudden, all these gig economy workers stepped in. We saw Shipt, we saw Instacart, and a million others like them. And I'll say that was great. They stepped up, they filled a void. But the problem I have with it as a logistics guy is I know that guy has just dropped his kids off at football practice, and he went shopping, and he dropped it off at my house. He's not exactly committed to this gig, and which is fine, but there needs to be somebody above him, and I guess you would call that the orchestration layer. There needs to be somebody who's bringing routing and technology and operational excellence, and I mean, that's the grind. That's what I need. And you know, God bless all the people who are doing the freelancing. There's nothing wrong with them. It's the problem is, as a big company, I can't work with them. I need somebody who is taking care of business.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, those the companies like that, and they get you. You said it. They served a purpose, and it was a good purpose for a long time. I myself have used Shipped, and it was during the pandemic period. Right? It wasn't Florida wasn't shut down for very long, but it was shut down for a short amount of time.
COVID's afraid of Florida and Texas.
uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, the issue now is that the experience that the shopper has, right? So that experience goes through a marketplace and not through the actual business, right? So
This brings us to we want to talk about three things, and one of the things we want to talk about first is the problem with the marketplaces. I'm going to say it in my layman's term, my experience. So I live in Michigan, and I shop at Meijer. Meijer is just like Walmart. We would say, those of us who are in Michigan, we're partial to it because it's based in Michigan. Meijer, I think, is in 6 states. So I ordered some groceries from Meijer, and they brought my Diet Coke, except that time they brought caffeine-free Diet Coke, which why would I need that? So I said I'll just return it myself. So I went over to Meijer the next day, said I want to replace these caffeine-free Diet Coke with real Diet Coke. And they said, okay, no problem. They go, what's your phone number? Gave my phone number. That's my customer number at Meijer. And then they said, when did you buy these? I said, yesterday. She said, we don't have that in the system. And it hit me right then. I've been shopping at Meijer for over 20 years. And suddenly when I used Shipped, I was Shipped's customer, not Meijer's customer. And my experience is not with Meijer, it's with Shipped. And then and I was like, ooh, that's bad. And then I learned that companies like Meijer lose money on deals with Shipped. And I learned one more thing, and I think I learned it from, could have been you or one of your friends over at OneRail, is sometimes companies like that go to their own fulfillment center and get the Diet Coke. And so Meijer potentially loses on the sale because they said, we got Diet Coke too, so we made the sale. And what it tells me is I hired somebody who's competing against me. And at some point, Shipped, and I'm not picking on Shipped, I think it's a great company. At some point, Shipped could send me a note saying, $80 off your first order with Shipped fulfillment. And now I'm their customer. That's not the kind of partner I want to work with if I'm a big retailer.
Exactly right. Yeah, it takes away the whole experience. Now your experience isn't a Meijer experience anymore. You've totally lost that. The only way to gain that back is, for them to change their process, and bring that, in the other part of that whole customer experience is that what it'll do, it'll drive you to go somewhere else, that may have the right experience. And in this day and age, with everybody competing for everything, you gotta avoid that. And you gotta know, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and create that process around that and have control of that type of items. What I always say is that let sell and do what you do best. Let a orchestration platform delivery company or that can find you delivery companies do what they do best, right? We're not trying to sell for you, but we'll get your stuff delivered for sure.
You're not going to open up a fulfillment center and sell against your customers?
Oh,
or
no.
A tire store?
No, we are not, right.
Yeah, and so who's the sweet spot for OneRail?
Honestly, our sweet spot, I'll probably, there's nothing we'd say no to. Let me just say that.
We do a lot of B2B, right?
We do a lot of B2B, a lot, automotive, industrial, food and beverage, pet food, all those types of things. And we do a lot more as well, but I think our sweet spot is in those realms.
So anyway, we're talking about the problem with the marketplaces, and there's a lot of marketplaces out there that potentially, and again, the devil's in the detail. I think there was not a lot of options out there. So people were saying, hey, look, this is a nationwide option. We'll take advantage. And hey, so what? We're putting somebody into business. So what? We're we don't have necessarily all the control we want over this partner. I'm doing the air quotes here. My partner who now competes against me. And when you don't have full control, I mentioned my mom got some groceries delivered. It's supposed to be there at 3 in the afternoon. It gets there at 10:30 at night. Now, luckily, I was there. It was some guy, nice enough guy, but my mom's older. They're knocking on her door at 10:30 at night. She's lucky. They're lucky I was there, because she probably would have said, come back tomorrow. And I was thinking that they don't have control over that. That's a process that is completely out of control. And I would, as the retailer, that guy's representing you. For all you know, it delivered on time.
Now, you coming from the logistical industry, that it's that company. But for the most part, when you look at it, it doesn't matter if you're in franchising, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're outsourcing something, it doesn't matter. People don't see that. They see Meijer, they see ShopRite, they see Publix, right? That's what they see. They don't see all that. Yeah, we do. We see it, but that's not the normal person, right? The normal person just sees, hey, my guy came at 10 o'clock, not 3. I needed that stuff for dinner, whatever the thing is. And they didn't meet expectations.
And I think another thing we talked about before we hit record, if I work with OneRail, I can specify how my delivery happens. So I could say, Matt, I don't want anybody with face tattoos or nose rings. Not that I care, I don't, but I know some older people might, right? And depending what your product is, you might say, I don't give a damn, but it's off brand for us. So I don't want that.
Correct. Yeah. And it's everything. What does the vehicle look like? Is this a uniformed employee? There's all those things that you can actually choose to have happen through the OneRail system. So for sure, you're in control of that part of the experience, right? We're delivering, we're not the marketplace. We're showing up with what you asked us to show up with, the right vehicle type, the right dress code, whatever those things are that you're looking for to make your customer experience better. And the job gets done in the time frame that you want it done in. That's, if you're making a delivery promise, it's a delivery promise. So if it's promised by 3 o'clock, it better be there by 3 o'clock. And if it's not there by 3, it better be there by 3:30. And there better be good reason, accidents, weather, whatever that is. But and have a human side. So that's another thing that our shipper partners don't have to have. They don't have to deal with that whole delivery experience. We handle that delivery experience from that standpoint. We're talking to the drivers. We're talking to the end customer. We're taking that on ourselves to make that delivery experience even better.
But you can define that with your customers, who might be a tire store, might be a big retailer, might be a million different types of businesses. You say, let us work with you and define how that has to happen every single time. I need the uniforms. So your job as the head of partnerships, you're always looking for partners who can meet the needs of your shippers.
Exactly right. And our future shippers. So we're always looking ahead. That's what we're doing right now. Like I said, we have 10 million, assets in the system, 10 million drivers, 10 million plus. But we're always looking for the next, what are we moving into next? What, are we moving into, what kind of medical are we moving into? Do we need refrigerated? Do we need all those types of things? And that's what we're looking for. Always looking ahead.
Right. And so you can work with anybody, whether they're a retired guy who just wants to get out of the house for 15 hours a week, to the largest national carrier.
Correct.
And your guys will say, we have control. We have a big team. We have the technology. We're going to define what this looks like so everybody gets the right delivery experience every single time.
Yeah, especially with the technology, we also have the processes and procedures, right? So we're taking and onboarding, those partners properly for each specific customer. Every customer is different, so every shipper is different.
But that's kind of the technology for some of us. I think for most of us now is so tech enabled. I mean, when you get,
it has to be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so the Amazon's kind of always set that bar, but I think there's so many companies doing it well now, and maybe some, you don't know who's necessarily managing in between, but I can tell you. If you don't have somebody with the right technology, you're not going to get their updates. You're not going to get the confirmation emails. Whatever it is you defined, you're not going to necessarily get it when you're working with, a local delivery shop. It's just not what they do.
Correct. And you'd be, and maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but many people would be surprised how many of the entities out there that do deliveries still don't have technology, right? Part of our platform is that you have to have it. We have to have full visibility. You have to have, we have to have the PODs at the end. We have to have true tracking so our customers and we obviously can see it. And we give that when they don't have it. We give it away. So.
And by the way, I'm sure you have this conversation probably every week, but this is my sense of it is, and let's just say you and I started a delivery company and we said, we're going to actually buy trucks. We're going to buy a whole bunch of Sprinter vans. We're going to buy a whole bunch of Econolines, and we're going to deliver this, this, and this, and we're going to be the best. We're investing in trucks. We're investing in drivers. We're not going to invest necessarily in tech. So when they find a one rail that says, hey, we already have an ops team. We already have a technology. We already have customers to go, ooh, that's perfect. I didn't want to become a techie. I didn't want to become, an ops team. I didn't want to hire a whole back office, right? So it works well, and it's the same with. We see this across the whole industry. There's a lot of companies that are investing in trucks. Well, trucks are expensive, right? So they don't necessarily. You can't invest everywhere. I mean, only the very biggest trucking companies can say we're going to develop our own tech, right? It's too expensive. So anyway, we talked about a few things. First, we talked about the problem with the marketplace, and that is the lack of control, their potentially bad experience. They're competing with you. They're costing you money. Don't want any of that. Secondly, we talked about like owning the customer experience. You should, if you're the company that's shipping something, you should be able to define and own that experience and know that it's consistently happening. That's what Matt and his team do. What's the last thing that we wanted to talk about?
I think it's the shipper or the customer knowing exactly what they want. It's not just jumping into the delivery business because everybody else is doing it. You got to know what your customers want. And from the very smallest thing to the largest, right? So do they want 1 hour delivery, or do they really want by the end of the day? Right? Do they want those types of things? Don't be sold into something your customers don't necessarily need or want. Your customers want their deliveries on time. Let the delivery company, let the orchestration platform do what it does best and get those deliveries on time. You keep selling, right?
Right. So that third thing is, well, I think we're talking about two things. So what's first off is, you don't want the delivery company saying, here's what the experience will look like. You want to say, I own this. They're my customers. Here's what I want. So if I want to work with like a one rail that says, we don't care what you want. We'll make it happen. Tell us what you want us to do. And then you have that tech, that orchestration platform that allows this to happen. With that, again, it's got to be tech enabled. The technology not only makes it easier to do, but it's also kind of what the consumers want too.
Right. And this is designed for them, right? So the platform, especially our platform, is designed for the customer. It's not the same thing as everybody else has, right? You're not logging into a marketplace and the marketplace doing all the work for you. You're just have a delivery platform that you see everything orchestrated and everything running smoothly from start to finish. And that's essentially what I feel makes any customer, any shipping experience better, right? It's one place that you log into that you can see all your deliveries. You just know the deliveries are getting done, and they're getting done the way you want them done, not the way the company wants them done or the products that the company wants to replace.
Right. And by the way, I know this isn't working. I was just I just went out to dinner the other night Sunday night with a friend, and he was texting, and he kept texting back and forth. I was like, what are you doing? He goes, it was a grocery store. He goes, I was supposed to pick up my groceries at noon, and it was Sunday, so it was football day. So he zooms by there at noon, and they don't come out. Well, he's got a bad leg, so he calls them, says, hey, I'm out in the parking lot. They're like, hey, we're not ready. Come back in 2 hours. And he goes, 2 hours? How about you deliver it to my house? I'm like a mile away. And by the way, I don't know why he's not having to deliver it anyway. But we are having dinner at 7:00 at night, and he's still in their system, texting somebody, doing the whole, I'm thinking, that's horrible. That's horrible. And by the way, that's a big grocery store. So I know some of the grocery store chains have gotten it figured out, but I'd say a lot of them don't. And I will throw this out there. There's a labor shortage that we're all experiencing. And a lot of that labor shortage shows up in just in the space we're talking about. Drivers, guys who will pack groceries. And not just groceries, I mean, it's just across the board. Any of those low-level jobs, there's a lot of good jobs that people are taking outside of the. I talk to young people, and a lot of them say, "Oh, I'm doing coding." Well, I was like, I was cutting grass when I was your age. Right? I was working landscaping and construction when I was your age, not coding. So there's a lot of opportunities for young people just because the labor shortage is there. So that's why you need someone like a One Rail who says, "Hey, we got 10 million drivers.
You get it ready. We'll get it delivered for you." Exactly right.
God, it's just a matter of time before we're all driving for One Rail.
You can easily do that. We'll go through that at the end, but you can do that.
Yep. So I want to summarize this one and get your final thoughts. So we talked about three big things. So first off, we talked about the problem with the marketplaces. And again, I know they served a purpose, especially during the pandemic, to ship the Instacarts. The problem is you as the company, you don't own them. They compete against you. They're showing that. And you don't get to control things to the extent that you want. Secondly, the delivery experience matters more than ever. That has to be defined by the shipper. It has to be consistent every single time. They need to have ownership of that, not the people they use. They can't say, it's a little different when Matt delivers versus when Joe delivers. Nope, it's the same every single time. Last, we talked about the importance of technology and the orchestration platform to make sure this happens seamlessly, to make sure that we can have that tech-enabled experience every single time. Final thoughts, Matt Schultz.
I think that when we sum everything up, it's all about experience, and it's just not experience for the end customer. It's also experience for that shipper, and for their employees, for how their processes and procedures work, and their experience with what they're dealing with, and not having to do so many different things and log into so many different platforms to do what they do, and then having the full capability to get that delivery done the way they want it done, not the way they're being told it needs to be done, right? Know your customer, know what they want. And on the
You actually work for the shipper, not for yourselves.
That's right. And then on the customer's end, it's all about that experience, right? So they need that correct experience, not their deliveries coming at 10 o'clock tonight when they're supposed to be at 3, not deliveries that are broken and smashed and all those types of things. It's all about experience. And if they have a bad experience, they're not going to shop from you anymore. They're going to shop, or they're going to start at least shopping somewhere else, and that all it takes is one time, and then they get used to that process. And the same on the other end. We need that experience to be good, and that your employees for a shipper need that experience to be easy and technologically advanced enough that they can see everything going. They don't need to worry about what's happening with delivery. It's in One Rail's hands now. They'll get it delivered.
And you mentioned that little problem. Every problem that there is in business, there's that fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD. And if you just type in FUD, I actually have done podcasts on FUD. Just a little tiny bit of fear enters into the relationship because you go, I don't know, maybe this will work. Maybe they'll get the stuff delivered on time today. Or uncertainty, I hope they can. I hope they somehow get this done. Or I start doubting that. Well, that is not what we need in these relationships. Again, we're trying to get people to do this e-commerce and say, I trust this. And by the way, we all trust, for the most part, Amazon. We need to get that trust across the board so we stop saying Amazon sets the bar and we're all trying to reach there. No, we have to say this is where we're consistently having an Amazon-like experience. And the only way you're going to get that is, get a partner like One Rail that can actually meet that standard every single time.
Right, and consistency, correct. Mm-hmm.
So before you go, what I'll do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile so people can reach out and bug you on LinkedIn. I'll also put a link to your website and anything else your marketing team gives me. What conferences are you guys going to attend?
Yeah, so up until January, we have right now. Bill is actually our founder and CEO. He's actually at Consumers Returns in Texas. We have Synops Orlando coming up. F3 Future of Freight, I believe, in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yes, that's the FreightWaves thing. Yep.
That's right, FreightWaves. And then we have Manifest coming up in January as well. We'll be at.
I will see you at Manifest. I'm looking forward to that one. And I know F3 is going to be great. I don't know about the other one that Bill's already at, but we'll see you guys. I'm assuming you guys are all the major conferences, right?
We are. Yes, all the major conferences.
Well, we will see you there. Again, I love what you guys are doing because you're making... you're corralling all these great options that people want to use and want to have that, but they want to use them, but they want to have that consistent experience.
One place, right? In one place.
I don't want to, if I'm the shipper, I don't want to go into 10 different systems and I want to be texting. I don't want to be texting Joe and emailing Matt. I want one system.
Right. You want one integrated system. It makes it real easy.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward.
You've been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage in conversation with experts in the logistics field. For more details, visit thelogisticsoflogistics.com or follow Joe Lynch on LinkedIn.